Hey, good work, people.
Girl, I really don't.
Final stretch now. It's a two-horse race with two of you in each horse, the ass and the head. Horse 1 is going for the lawyers at City Hall. Horse 2 is on the business partner in Richmond. Sound good? Get moving. Climb the ladder. Get in position on the rooftop.
Hello?
and Sherman are en route in a black benefactor shafter. Do not shoot until they are out of the car. Here they come. Wait till they're out and take the shots at the exact same time. 2 shots, 2 kills. Well done. Now, go down and get their documents, and if the police corner you, make sure you're killed, not captured. Team just cleaned up at Pablo's house. Bring the deposition back in. Sounds like the locals have given up their pursuit. Good work, team.
entirely. This is a separate part of the one great.
Hello!
who wrote it. And in it he says, there's hell to pay when those who hyped the conspiracy have closed the books on the case. Team Trump is now in damage control mode. They've also fought among themselves. That will leave scars. What are those scars? The midterms?
I mean, very possibly. I mean, we're seeing, I think, a lot of these these sort of manosphere bro podcasters who weren't typically very Trump people. They got on board in 2024, and now they're saying, wait a minute, is he insulting our intelligence? They're flip-flopping all over the place. Kash Patel closes the case. Now he says, you got to go and interview Ghislaine. We got to get to the bottom of this. So I think with that audience, particularly young men who see this as an important issue, and suddenly they feel like Trump's just acting like a member of the establishment, I think it could be a real issue there.
An important point. Thank you so much, everyone. A great conversation. Still ahead tonight, it's one of the big questions we keep getting from all of you. Where is Alex Acosta? You know, that one former U.S. attorney who gave Epstein that original plea deal, the sweetheart one? Is Congress going to talk to him? Well, I asked Democratic Congressman Jamie Raskin that very question and more next.
So, you like your job?
I love it. What I do is really important.
You give eye?
Oh, bitch, I need my thing. Come on, my baby. Come on, my pal. I don't like this at all.
Here we go. Okay, you're splitting into two teams. Transporter, officer, you're the ground team. To start with, you'll collect our bus from the junkyard at Sandy Shores. Demolitions, you're the perimeter team. You'll be hijacking the inbound Bolingbroke transport. The pilot's going to LSIA. And me, I'm gonna put up some smoke in a nice crowded public place. We've given everyone an AP pistol and a special carbine, so there's no fighting over who's the favorite. Demolitions has got a jerry can and some sticky bombs too. Let's get to work. Once the bus is secure, Demolitions is driving it to Sandy Shores. The pilot's going to LSIA. bus around the back of the building and torch it. Demolitions, we need you airborne, running defense. There's a Merryweather exercise using an attack chopper at Lago Zancudo. It's currently sitting west of the airstrip. Requisition it, get airborne, and protect the plane. That aircraft must be intact to get Reshkovsky out of the country.
Real, then he was the one demanding it up until he had reason to believe that he was in it.
Tell me the timeline. You want to move?
You think you're hard?
We did it, Joe. We did it.
That believes fracture was a mistake and that regression is the only path forward. This frenzied part of the One Great is called an outer god, as per Mikkela's needle. So, as such, like the greater will,
Once the bus is secure, Demolitions is driving it to Sandy Shores. The pilot's going to LSIA. close attention or the entire operation will be burned. Up on the airfield, take the bus around the back of the building and torch it. Move it, people!
What's your problem?
Coordinate the pickup. Demolitions. Do what you can do. We're almost there, people. The local PD are all over this. Communicate. Choose somewhere with enough space to land and pull them out. Pilot, ground team, you need to coordinate and get Rashkovsky airborne ASAP.
That controversy, though. Hogan admitted to using steroids in the 90s. And in 2015, he was caught on video using racial slurs, leading the WWE to terminate his contract. Hogan since apologized for his comments, but many wrestlers and fans never forgave him. He also dabbled into politics towards the end of his life as an unabashed Trump supporter. And who can forget this moment in the 2024 Republican convention?
Once the bus is secure, Demolitions is driving into Sandy Shores. The pilot's going to LSIA.
We're going to ask the time to kill the band. We're talking about WWE Hall of Fame wrestler Diamond Dallas Page, DDP. Thank you for being here. You know, I have to tell you, I hate when I meet people like this because I wanted to talk to you. I wished it would not have been in a day when you are a dear, dear friend. And you were friends for a long time outside the ring. Can you just tell us what that relationship meant to you, especially when you were starting out?
Well, you know, a lot of people think it's all about who you know or who knows you. Personally, I believe it's all about who's willing to say they know. You will put their name on the line. And Hope did that at a very early time for me. I didn't start wrestling when I was 35. My career didn't take off until I was 40. That was in 96. And really on the back end of 96, and then my feud started with the NWO. And of course, at that point, Hope went from the Red Yellow, the Vegas Way, to, you know, ripping up the Red and Yellow. And when that event was going on, and Nash and Paul were beating up on Savage, and when Hope came down, you just assumed he's going to go save the day. But no, he dropped that leg on body and turned heel, which in our business means the bad guy. The phone that Turner broadcasted lit up like crazy because these parents were so upset. They were so upset that their kids were crying. Like it was an emotional thing all the way around. What's really beautiful about wrestling is and why people get so into it because it blurs the line. You know, I don't want to spoil this for anybody, but wrestling is a free tournament. You know, but one thing for sure I know you'll agree with Laura. Because, hey, one thing for sure I know you'll agree with, you can't fake wrestling. And the beating that our bodies go through is through the roof. And there's nobody that can compare to us but linemen in the NFL, the guys who ride bulls. Those guys can go, they can ride a stage horse and take a serious beating. But I want to get back to that NWO moment when the whole came to the face of wrestling. Him and Eric Bischoff came up with the idea that Holt would be the guy that would be the third guy. And when it happened, people booed it. But man, when he started talking, he turned himself so cold, that man, the garbage that was being thrown into the ring, you can't pay people to do that. Like, it was, the people were really pissed. But it was so great because people didn't know Vince McMahon, who really started this whole thing with Hulk Hogan. And, you talk about an icon. First of all, I got two icons, almost 48 hours. Ozzy Osbourne and Hulk Hogan both leave this earth, as you know it. Our lives are we're living and both at the same time. Like, oh my God. It's depressing. And,
Well, what was it? I heard myself ask, I already know what he's going to say, but tell me what, you talk about you can't defy gravity. I mean, he had a career that in many ways defied it. He has been a household name for
Once the bus is secure, Demolitions is driving it to Sandy Shores. The pilot's going to LSIA. You got the transport? Okay. It's fitted with a geolocator, so it needs to be going in vaguely in the right direction. You'll bypass the prison and take it up to Sandy Shores Airfield, where you'll destroy it and wait for the jet. Do not attract police attention, or the entire operation will be burned. bus around the back of the building and torch it.
off of the front pages again and talk about something else. And he has a good point. The president does. I'm the Democrat. To walk in there and be like, this thing's way over budget. What's going on?
Why focus on this as opposed to, well, actually, why focus on South Park? Let me go there instead. Because this is this moment, if you had the White House going after them for their depiction of Trump, here's a clip of what they had an issue with.
Another random bitch commented on my Instagram that you're on the Epstein list.
Yeah, right?
Who are you on the list or not? It's weird that whenever it comes up, you tell everyone to relax.
Here's a clip of what they had an issue with.
Another random bitch commented on my Instagram that you're on the Epstein list.
The Epstein list?
Who are you on the list or not? It's weird that whenever it comes up, you just tell everyone to relax.
You know, the White House was releasing a statement today, and it says the show is, quote, hanging on by a thread with uninspiring ideas and a desperate attempt for attention. First of all the things going on, and it would take me the entirety of my show to detail every single person and group that South Park has gone after in years and satirized in some ways. Why bother to even address this?
It's a statement. They put them out a bunch of
Why?
It doesn't really bother me, honestly, but I'll say this. A week ago, we were talking about how Trump was canceling and silencing people, the First Amendment. If they really were doing that, wouldn't that be a case that they would be doing that too? Democrats are blaming Trump for canceling Colbert, and that's still going on. So I think the First Amendment is still intact. Thank the Lord.
These boys have been doing this for 20 years. They went after everybody, Democrats, Republicans. There's one thing you can't blame them for. Paramount, which we've been talking about, to give them $1.5 million to do like 20 episodes and to have rights to all their own stuff because they've been killing it and messing with folks since the day they started. They've made a great business out of it. Fourth rate, second rate, whatever the rate is, I'd like some of that rate.
I mean, the idea of all the things that are going on in the world right now, for them to stop and address the South Park, is just pretty stunning to me. But then there's this moment, and you mentioned Colbert. In fact, Democrats are blaming Trump for the state firing. Not firing, the ending of the show. To be very precise. He wasn't fired, the show is canceled. The New York Times reports that to a House Democrat said the Colbert talk, quote, sounded like an awfully boomer-centered concern at a time when the party needs to stop its bleeding among young people. So are Democrats spending too much time on Colbert?
I think they could be, but also they could be using it to their advantage as well. Two things can be true at the same time. He was losing like billions of dollars an episode, but he was also the most popular TV on that time slot.
Excuse me, but thank you.
Ooh, yeah, ooh. That's actually notable. Is it found as number 2 in the time slot, but it's getting more addresses living on in social media.
Got some cool stuff here for you. So what you looking for? Got pretty much everything in here. Always gotta have a mag of that. Hey, you know your business partner, Franklin? He knows his shit up here. Hell of a shot, too.
experience.
Hey, you taking care of one of our guests?
Hey, what's going on, brother?
So, I just got off the phone with Parsons Rehabilitation Center. Didn't even realize our guy was missing. Apparently, he hadn't showed up for his 9 o'clock self-loathing session, but that's pretty normal. Man, rehab has changed. Last time I was there, it was all ice baths and freakishly strong German nurses. Anyway, they're expecting you.
Filled with aid, go nowhere. Technically in Gaza, miles away from starving Palestinians.
Even if both sides don't want a war, they can certainly turn into a war.
Cambodia and Thailand appear to be inching closer to a wider conflict after a second day of deadly and escalating military strikes.
And the justice actually saying that she found that woman's testimony to be not credible.
And with that, 5 former members of Canada's junior hockey team found not guilty of sexual assault. So why then are they still ineligible to play in the National League?
Live from Atlanta, this is CNN Newsroom with John Holmes.
International pressure continues to grow on Israel to end the war in Gaza, with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer saying the crisis has reached new depths. The suffering and starvation of Palestinians unspeakable and indefensible. And in the coming hours, he will hold emergency talks with the leaders of France and Germany. And French President Emmanuel Macron says France will officially recognize a Palestinian state at the UN General Assembly in September. Posting on Next, the urgent priority today is to end the war in Gaza and bring relief to the civilian population. Swift condemnation came from the Israeli Prime Minister, saying that move would reward terror and be a launchpad to annihilate Israel. While the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio added the decision by France is a slap in the face to the victims of October 7. At the same time, in Doha, Qatar, ceasefire talks have ended, with U.S. and Israeli negotiators being withdrawn. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff says talks failed because Hamas has no desire to agree to a deal. And the U.S. will now consider other options to try and free the last of the hostages being held in Gaza. Hamas described those comments from Witkoff as malicious, biased, and dishonest, and part of the ongoing psychological warfare and false propaganda aimed at justifying Israeli aggression, unquote. For the past 21 months, the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank has been able to do little more than watch, as tens of thousands of Palestinians in Gaza have been killed by the Israeli military, powerless to stop a rising death toll from starvation caused by Israel's border blockade, which is preventing the distribution of almost all humanitarian supplies. The Prime Minister of the Palestinian Authority says his government is in regular communication with Hamas and is urging the militant group now to end the war for the sake of the Palestinian people. And Mohammed Mustafa spoke exclusively to CNN's Christian Arndt.
We are very outraged about what's going on. Our people deserve dignity, deserve to live normally, deserve to get food, to get water, to live normally. We believe that wars will not bring peace to this region. And these actions will only bring hatred and anger to this region. Displacement, starvation, annexation, and occupation are a recipe for disaster. We need the world to look at this very seriously this time. This is not going to be good for anybody whatsoever, including the Israeli side.
Mr. Prime Minister, let me also ask you about starvation. What are you hearing about how ordinary civilians, ordinary individuals, men, women, and children are faring in the ability to stave off hunger?
Things are extremely difficult. Action is needed, especially in terms of opening the border process. This is the first thing needs to be done so that aid can come in as soon as possible. There's a lot of aid waiting at the gates. Gates are closed by the Israeli government. This got to change. This is the first priority.
You said a whole load of things there that require, buy-in from the Israeli government as well, and there is none. Their official spokespeople basically say there is no starvation, no hunger crisis. In other words, nothing that they're created. They blame the UN for not distributing the food. I mean, what's the next step? How do you think this starvation issue, the hunger issue, is going to be resolved?
The biggest challenge is the siege enforced by Israel on the border process. This is the problem. I think the priority, therefore, is for the international community to pressure Israel, seriously pressure Israel to open the borders and allow food in. There is no need to give excuses. The starvation is evident. Everybody in the world can see that.
What about Hamas's position? Are you actually in touch with Hamas at all?
Hamas and Israel needs to cooperate. There's no reason. To continue this war, we have already said to Hamas that for the sake of our people, for the interest of our people, for the national interest, we need to move on. We need to end this war. And I think they are doing, from what we understand, they are doing the best they can, being as helpful as they can. If they are not doing that, we invite them to come and do this as soon as possible for the sake of our people. But clearly, the real problem, we believe, is still on the Israeli side.
The Israelis insist they are in compliance with international law, and humanitarian assistance is being allowed to cross the border from Israel and into Gaza. And strictly speaking, that's true. The Kiryat Shalom crossing sits at the junction of Gaza's borders with both Israel and Egypt, and is the main access point for trucks. And as CNN's Nick Robertson reports, hundreds of trucks from dozens of international aid groups are parked on the Gaza side of the checkpoint. And has already created logjam, say critics, with the sole purpose of preventing the distribution of food, medicine, and other supplies.
Reporting at Israel's biggest border crossing to Gaza. The silence is the story. This is the Israeli side in the distance. Beyond the concrete there, you can see there's sort of yellow tunnels. That's Gaza. But just beyond that wall, hundreds of trucks worth of aid for distribution in Gaza piling up, causing an apparent logjam in logistics. And that's been the big point of contention between the Israeli government and the UN. The Israeli government say that they are passing food aid across this border into Gaza. What the UN officials are saying is, yes, but we can't just come and pick it up.
The Karim Shalom is not a McDonald's drive-through where we just pull up and pick up what we've ordered, right?
This big empty car park space, the UN spokesman saying Israel intentionally throttling back aid supplies through onerous controls.
There are tremendous bureaucratic impediments. There are tremendous security impediments. And frankly, I think there's a lack of willingness to allow us to do our work.
Israel is still defending its actions. Its president visiting the crossing, claiming attacks and disrupting aid supply. Displaced as a result of the fighting tensions rising after these deadly clashes among the
they're fragile. Both formats won't last, but Legacy
Oh.
Books saves them. Specially digitized, easy to stream, and ready to share. Join the millions of families who have chosen. It also has its own voice. 3 fingers, not 2. And the fact that its own voice are 3 fingers is likely no coincidence. 2 plus 3 equals a 5-fingered hand, and thus, I think, 3 fingers being on voice sends a powerful message. The message being that if order is run by 2 fingers, then the other 3 are naturally the ones that are missing. Of course, this is just speculation, but I like to think that the 3 fingers are kind of a revelation in and of themselves. It sends the message that once all was part of the one great, the 3 fingers and the 2. Unlike the 2 fingers, the 3 fingers are free to tell us their truth, that there was a mistake in the fracturing of things long ago, and that under the branches of order, life now divides and distinguishes, leading to torment, despair, affliction, sins, and curses. And so they believe the only solution is to melt everything away with the yellow chaos flame until all is one again. I'll quickly talk about the nature of the one great and the greater will, because there have been some revelations revealed by Elden Ring's DLC, and one of them is that the greater will both is and inhabits a lifeless abyss, as is depicted by the empty space in Count Emir's headpiece. Now, this is going to sound contradictory, and of course this is all just speculative territory on a cosmic level, but I think, somehow, the birth of everything might have come from a void. The greater will's void. Astel, natural born of the void, is one such example of this happening, after all. Because of this bastard of the stars, we know that life can come from a void. So, if a void is clue to the greater will's nature, then maybe a void is also what one great was and inhabited. And so, perhaps it's no coincidence then that when frenzy burns something, it burns it away to nothingness. One great void.
Having insurance isn't the same as having State Farm. It's like getting big man. You need that. Stop.
In the graveside plane, we come across countless spirit gravestones, which are gravestones that have started to turn into spirits, fitting for a land where all ends of death drift. These stones, if crafted together with a swollen grape, create a surging, frenzied flame, an item which violently spits frenzy like butter in a hot pan. Its description reads, spirits are eternal, and yet the frenzied flame builds them away regardless. It's no wonder that the torrent, being a spirit, is terrified of this place. Naturally, too, the Horn Set, whose culture revolves around spirits, forbid the flame's use, and to stamp it out, at some point they would send an order of visitors to invade and purge Midra's sanctum. Though apparently the fact frenzy is forbidden hasn't stopped the woman who invented this consumable. The Mad Craftsman's cookbook that teaches it reveals that it is a record of crafting techniques left by a craftsman who served Midra at Anaya. His eyes were burned by the flame of frenzy. But were his experiments with frenzy being done before or after the purge of Midra's sanctum? What I really want to understand here is, was frenzy brewing in the hands for a while, or did it only truly become a threat when the Inquisition invaded? Let's talk about that. We know that frenzy must have been present at the manse in some capacity before the Hornsent Inquisition arrived. Why else would the Inquisition have come to stamp it out? However, I don't think it was out of control by any means. I think they were merely on the brink of it, and that's because of this tortured phantom of the manse, who questions why the Inquisition and their cruelty was even necessary. While begging for mercy, he says, I ask, what crime did great Midra commit? It's not clear whether he simply doesn't understand the threat that frenzy represents, or whether he simply doesn't think that Midra is to blame for it. But I think we can at least take from this that frenzy wasn't out of control at the sanctum. It was just there, and and the horn-sent inquisitors had been made aware of it. But I reckon even the mere hint of frenzy would have been the beginning of the end for Midra's sanctum, and that's because frenzy is essentially a self-fulfilling prophecy. Fear of frenzy and its void inspires an extreme response to those in power, leading to the torture and torment of those who are frenzied, which is itself an extreme response that exacerbates frenzy even more, and on it goes. In the end, frenzy only really exists because of how awful the world is, and the torture to stifle it only proves that fact. So, when the Inquisition arrived to purge this damnation like no other, they brought pain, as was their way. These horn-sent inquisitors are not unlike Reichardt's own inquisitors, who we discussed in a recent video. Both forces use torture to extract the answers they seek, and both inquisitions likely existed to root out traitors and threats to their regime. As opposed to the fire of Reichardt's inquisitors, the Hornsense brand of Inquisition utilizes golden arcs called barbs, which, according to the spell, were a known symbol of coercive questioning. The barbs on the Great Sword of Damnation, for example, unwrap to pierce the victim from within, inflicting continuous wounds to assure eternal agony. There's actually an intriguing bit of lore hidden in the weapons skill of this item, which reads, "There is something of the Golden Order in the sight of those fixed upon this crux." The Golden Order. For me, this brings to mind Marika, crucified as she is upon a golden ark at the end of the game. Alternatively, since the Golden Order was created upon the removal of destined death, perhaps the Great Sword of Damnation evokes this fact by inflicting eternal suffering without death as a release. Thus is the Golden Order seen in the shape of those fixed upon its crux. Perhaps. It's hard to say for sure what was meant by this line, but I'm glad this line exists because I think it means that they want us to question why the barbs of the Hornsense look like the rune arcs of the Elden Ring. So why? Why do the Hornsense have these golden arcs and methods of torture that echo the Golden Order when theirs is a civilization that preceded the Golden Order and the Elden Ring? So, to answer that, while I think it's true that the Hornsense were around long before Marika, I do think Marika and the Elden Ring became part of their culture for a time. The simplest proof of this is in how the Hornsense believe that Marika betrayed them, because for them to consider Marika's actions a betrayal, Marika must have been considered a part of the Hornsense culture on some level. But for more evidence of Marika's involvement in this place at this time, take a look here, where you respawn after getting jump-scared by a winter lantern. There's a stake of Marika here, and for these to be in the realm of shadow, it means that Marika must have been a force in the world long before the Inquisition arrived. Even here, in this sanctum that's geographically separated from the rest of the realm. And while you could argue that these are just here for a gameplay reason, and that they have no relevancy to the lore, I don't think so, because I think From Software are aware of the lore implications of these statues. For evidence of this, look at Raya Lucaria. This is a place where Marika would have been unwelcome, and so there are no stakes of Marika at all here. All of this is to say that torture was ingrained in the Golden Order, be it via the Hornsense Inquisitors, or Reichardt's Inquisitors, or the Elden Beast itself. Order requires enforcement, it seems. Remember, Marika's minor Erdtree has taught us that there is kindness without order, and therefore that there is cruelty with it. And so, even though such torture exacerbates frenzy, it was the institutionalized way forward for the Hornsense, who, as we know from other parts of the lore, were a race that definitely had no issues persecuting their own brethren. The tortured phantom we mentioned earlier laments, "I beg you stop, haven't I taken enough? Are we not brethren, common in our line? And yet you offer only cruelty." Here in this sanctum, where frenzy was taking root, the Hornsense brought their full strength to bear. But perhaps the place should have been left alone, for The results of the Inquisition were mixed, to say the least. Clearly, the Inquisition wasn't prepared to handle the answers it found, and many Inquisitors have become frenzied in the Abyssal Woods, revealing new attacks of Frenzy Flame. Interestingly, one spell they channel is Frenzied Burst, which has a description that talks about how every single person who attempted to control the flame of frenzy succumbed to madness after a desperate internal struggle. This is the same incantation that Vike uses, and it might be a reflection of his own struggle with madness. The fact that this incantation exists is called a meager victory over frenzy, and this is why I think the Inquisitors fought hard before succumbing to the frenzy. Perhaps this first-hand witnessing of the despair that was coming as a result of their own torture touched them, or perhaps they fell victim to the aging untouchables, the Winter Lanterns, who we'll talk about more later. The forest is now truly the most horrific part of this.
I literally hope that everybody in the world sees this video and finally gets rid of their dandruff. Because if you've ever been prescribed a dandruff shampoo, you...
In my opinion, not the manse itself. And I say that because the Inquisitors who occupy the manse are not the frenzied variant. Despite frenzy having infected the rats and shadowy hornsent within, the Inquisitors of the manse don't have a single frenzy flame attack. Why? Well, I think that this was done to show that their Inquisition was successful to a degree, thanks to the majority of the Inquisition's strength being focused here at the manse, and there is Inquisition strength here. For example, one of the Fat Inquisitors is in possession of revered Spirit Ash, a powerful blessing of the Hornsent, and there are even the spirits of Divine Beast Warriors roaming the halls. The Divine Beast Warriors were an elite force among the Hornsent, but you know that already from fighting them, don't you? To be clear though, these aren't physical Beast Warriors, they're actually spirits. Perhaps these warriors were once part of the Inquisition's forces and then died in this place. What's more likely though, I think, is that perhaps their ashes were given to the Inquisitors, who then summoned them here to fight, as weapons to be wielded in their assault. We do, after all, know that the Inquisitors are capable of summoning the spirits of their comrades. We know this thanks to Jory, the Elder Inquisitor, who rings a sort of spirit-calling bell to summon his brethren in his boss fight. And it's here, in this place where the catacomb spills out into the forest, that he holds down the fort, alone. A final frontier for those coming in or out. According to the Inquisitor Ashes, Inquisitions often perplexed the minds of the uninitiated, and so seniority was viewed as an asset. And Jory is an elder Inquisitor, thus his age helps to explain. He is the last one remaining on the edge of the forest, endlessly calling in his brethren to fulfill their duties properly in death. One thing I wonder, though, is why Inquisitions perplexed the minds of the uninitiated. Was it because these Inquisitions were focused on torture so deeply? Could newer inductees not understand or fathom why they were performing these terrible rites? We do know from the Caterpillars that doubt about the terrible rites that they were performing was a thing, and that they had to intentionally ward this away, so perhaps this torture inflicted via the Inquisitions caused a similar sort of doubt. Whatever the case, to an extent, Hornsent efforts here were successful. Books were burned, the manse was stopped. And on that note, I want to talk about the 10 figures that are found outside the manse. There's not much information on these guys, I think, but if I had to guess, I'd say that these 10 were Midra's associates, who were bound and executed outside the manse. Their somewhat similar garb to Midra's, and also the gold protruding from their necks, might be an indication of that. This, plus the fact that they're just facing away from the manse, strikes me as a warning for those in the forest to stay away from the manse, which Midra's executioners have now laid claim to. And speaking of execution, As a result of the Inquisition's invasion, Midra himself accepted the great sword of damnation and pledged to endure their eternal punishment, warning others to stay away from him, lest they succumb. But I don't think that this was a true victory for the Inquisitors, because in reality, while Midra endured, the frenzy was ripening within him, and one day it would be a fruit fit to burst, all according to plan, perhaps.
Molly loves her dental lab dog treats. They help clean teeth and freshen breath.
Reduce trying to build up?
Despite evidence of the Inquisition's victory in this place, frenzy is entrenched pretty deeply, now at least. The very earth is scarred, and even the animals are afflicted. Even the originally multicolored flowers of this place have changed to be colored by frenzy, and one particularly inventive perfumer has clearly used these to create the frenzy flame perfume. It's clear that frenzy is ripening here, and I think that most of it came as a result of the Inquisition itself. There's a curious enemy in this place that I think supports this idea. The Madding Hand. It's a human NPC, whose namesake is a weapon, a glove, stitched together with the flayed skin of the victims of a butcherous bloodbath. It was forged of an unyielding black impulse towards revenge, fostered in those who were hunted down as heretics by their own brethren. So, the heretics in this description would have been the horn-scent denizens of the sanctum, and their brethren who hunted them down would have been the horn-scent inquisitors. And now, the heretics' desire for revenge has been stitched together into a hand made of their flayed skin. Now, I was originally going to suggest that the Madding Hand himself skinned these victims to create this glove, but since the tooth whip exists, and it was used by the horn-scent, it's possible that the flaying was just a part of the horn-scent torture of these heretics. Either way, this Madding Hand has taken it upon himself to fight on the heretics' frenzied behalf. So who is he? Well, he's actually wearing the Gravebird's black quill armor, which is an item that's cast in the image of the Gravebird, which is a gravekeeper golem that's linked to mausoleums and to the process of burning death in ghost flame. So, given that lore, you'd think then that this is a man that is linked to the ancient processes of death, and indeed he's actually physically very close to the Darklight catacombs that brought you here, and catacombs traditionally do employ a lot of ghost flame processes in them. So that's kind of where the facts end on this guy and where speculation begins. For example, given the armor, perhaps he was a defender of the local catacomb who got swept up in or witnessed the horn-scent's purge. Or, considering the stitched hand that represents the heretic's desire for revenge, perhaps he now wishes to aid the frenzy of the forest. And do we think the blindfold could be related to frenzy? It certainly matches Hayeta's fashion, so there's something going on there, I think. Maybe blindfolds better enable one to envision the nothingness brought about by frenzy. Curious to hear what you guys think. Of course, none of this is fact, it's just my take on the guy. But of course, the real threat in the forest isn't the Madding Hand. It's the Winter Lanterns, the aging untouchables, whose presence is heralded by the Winter Lantern flies. These are winged insects carrying a dangling grain, and upon seeing these, the wise know to stay well clear. Turn back while you are yet able. Don't let it see you. Once you are seen, there is no escape. These messages are useful, but the most useful note of all is a page ripped from a diary and found in the manse. It reads, "I touched him, but only once. When he thrust his staff in my face, I brushed it aside. It was then that I touched him, the aging untouchable." Lore-wise, it's hard to know who wrote this note, but since it's a page ripped from a diary, you'd think then that this would have been written by a resident of the manse, who were known for their bookkeeping. What's more, this page is burned, just like all the other books. Therefore, this record was likely written before the Inquisition came through here. So it is that I think this aging untouchable that the note writes about might have existed in the forest before the Inquisition arrived. The author of this note even sketched a picture of its likeness. To be clear, I'm only talking about one aging untouchable here. The diary only mentions one of them, and so do the winter lanternflies, which are insects that herald the aging untouchable's approach. On seeing these, it reads, "The wise know to stay well clear." And that's the best way to combat frenzy, right? To leave it alone. The quote-unquote wise denizens of the sanctum had likely learned this early on, and perhaps so too did Marika, who locked away the frenzied merchants underground, out of sight and out of mind. So, in my headcanon at least, frenzy had appeared in the sanctum before the Inquisition, and there was an aging untouchable roaming that the manse had learned to steer well clear of. Of course, eventually, more aging untouchables would be created. There are 6 in-game that you can find, but frenzy had not yet gotten out of control. Remember, again, there's a phantom in the manse who wonders what crime Midra has even committed, and to be fair, is it a crime to learn painful truths? To despair?
New Dawn Power Sense traps, locks, and removes 99% of grease.
It's the better grease getter.
Need a sec? At Ollie, we get it. That's why we made new vitamin-infused body washes, scientifically formulated to repair your skin.
At any rate, while this note does reveal good lore, more than anything, it's meant to be a gameplay tip. It teaches you that by parrying a Winter Lantern's staff, the aging untouchable can be killed. While doing so, most drop a swollen grain, an eyeball that has swollen over time. Marked with fingerprint burns, it is proof that the Winter Lanterns have been touched directly by the 3 fingers embrace. These beings are the most dangerous thing in the sanctum now, especially considering the 3 fingers seem to have blessed them directly. They're even wearing rags, which might suggest that they've divested themselves of everything. But what defines them actually isn't that so much, it's actually something else. They are defined by their aging. Parry this Winter Lantern, and you receive the Aged One's exaltation, which reveals that their head is supposed to resemble this sprig of ripe grapes. This is fitting, but the most curious part is the quote that follows: "Gift your madness to our Lord, bless our brethren with grapes, take care that they fully ripen." This quote must have come from a horn scent, since it says, "our brethren." What's more, their walking sticks are twisted in a spiral, which is a horn scent symbol. So the aging untouchables were once horn scent, and eventually there were many. And whatever they were, aged inquisitors or denizens of the sanctum, now they exist to afflict the rest of the horn scent with frenzy. And this frenzy is defined by its full ripening. Ripening is obviously something that happens with fruit, making it very relevant in this situation where we're talking about grapes, which are eyes. And ripening is something that occurs over time. And so aging and enduring this madness is the key to this frenzy being powerful. And this frenzy is to be a gift, not unlike the shabriri grapes we gift to Hayata, so that she might glimpse the distant light. Frenzy is shared like that, and theirs is to be a gift to their Lord. Which brings us to Midra, finally, the old sage whose frenzy they surely intend to have fully ripened, so that he might become the Lord of Frenzied Flame. This ripening has been enhanced by his torture, and the final words that he heard from his lady. "Please endure," she said. It was a curse. Frenzy consumables tell us that the flame of frenzy burns the eyes, but tranquility follows in its wake. No wonder Vidya desperately wants to rip the torturous greatsword free of himself. take their torment, despair, their affliction, every sin, every curse, all melted away. So reads the spell Midra's Flame of Frenzy, which is a remembrance incantation designed in praise of Midra, Lord of Frenzied Flame. Curiously, this description ends with the line, "Yet Midra, like others before him, was too weak to become a lord." And yet, he did become a lord. So this line is kind of contradictory, right? Perhaps you're supposed to read this as Midra was a Lord of Frenzied Flame, but too weak to become a true Lord since you defeated him. Or, alternatively, perhaps you're supposed to read it as if Midra was originally too weak to become a Lord long ago, but over time he did become strong enough to become one. Or rather, he endured long enough to become one.
Endured more than enough.
You know what I like about you, boss? You're never afraid to return to the scene of the crime. Even if it involves underwater drainage pipe. It's just like
I ask you forgive me, dearest Nana.
From this dialogue, we learn a few things. One is that Midra genuinely sees the madness as a curse, and is worried about what it could do to others. Thus, he warns you to stay away. Two is that he genuinely cares about his lady, who he calls dearest Nanaya. And third, since Midra asks for Nanaya's forgiveness when he succumbs to frenzy, I think Midra believes that Nanaya told him to endure for the sake of others, yes, but also for her. So, this maiden essentially wants Midra to suffer in righteous hardship for the one that he loves. Now, where have we heard that before?
From ProPlan. It's Mile 10. Fuel for life. Stems flying insect fan trap, attracts and traps bugs 24/7.
If you are prepared to show resolve and attain lordship through righteous hardship, then heed the words of I, Shabriri. Your flesh will serve as kindling, and the girl can be spared, setting you on the righteous path of lordship.
So let's discuss the idea, the theory that Nanaya told Midra to endure specifically so that the frenzy could ripen within him. And then let's discuss the theory that she told him to do this because Nanaya is Shabriri, a being who is chaos incarnate, put on this earth to ensure that chaos has its law. In the base game, we learn that Shabriri is a sort of skinwalker, someone who has the ability to inhabit bodies of others. In his case, after they die, as he does with Yura, someone who is close to us. Thus, as the theory goes, perhaps Shabriri also came to inhabit Nanaya's skin, to encourage Midra's endurance and bring about a lord in Midra's center through what Shabriri calls righteous hardship. This wouldn't be the first time that Shabriri has attempted such a thing. It wouldn't even be the second. The player character is encouraged to embrace frenzy, to spare the life of their maiden, and so was Spike, the Tarnished who came close to becoming Elden Lord. We have an entire Prepare to Cry episode on Spike's story that explains him and all the characters associated with frenzy, so check that out after this if you need a recap, but let me quickly read you one item description now that will succinctly explain Spike. story for anyone who doesn't know. The fingerprint armor states, no other tarnished was closer to the throne of the Elden Lord than Vike, but without announcement, Vike travelled far below the capital and was scorched by the flame of frenzy. Did he make his choice for his maiden, or did some other force lure him with suggestion? Since Shabriri advocates for us becoming Lord of Frenzied Flame in the context of saving our maiden, burning in the Fell God's flame, I'd argue that Shabriri did the same with Vike, who would have been faced with the same choice. And with Midra being yet another potential Lord of Frenzied Flame, who would also do anything for his maiden, we've established a pretty significant trend in how Shabriri might be using these three characters. In regards to Midra's character specifically, the name would be a reference to the goddess of love from Mesopotamian folklore. It's a name that carries connotations of sensuality and charm, things that would definitely help to explain why Midra might have been so enraptured by her. And as one last piece of evidence for the theory that Nanaya might be inhabited by Shabriri, take a look at the Shabriri's Woe talisman, which was made in Shabriri's disturbing likeness. It states the corners of his mouth are upturned in an almost flirtatious manner, and I find it so perfectly creepy that Nanaya has a similar smile to Shabriri in the portrait here. It's so good. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I love this theory. I find it cool. And admittedly, the rule of cool might be affecting how strongly I advocate for this theory, so you should keep that in mind when listening to me. And on that note, I do want to say I first came across this theory in this Reddit thread, and it was through the process of agreeing, disagreeing with multiple arguments here that I came to my own conclusion. And my conclusion is that it's possible that Nanaya could be Shabriri, but it's also possible that Nanaya is just her own character, using a similar playbook as Shabriri. Either way, though, in my eyes, Nanaya is still a chilling, manipulative character who cursed Midra to endure very intentionally. But there are definitely a few ways to interpret Nanaya as a character. I'd encourage you to come to your own conclusion on this as well. For example, another interpretation might be that instead of being literally Shabriri, Nanaya could instead parallel Hayata, another sort of skinwalker in the base game who, seemingly unintentionally, occupies Arena's flesh. In her story, Hayata fulfills the role of Finger Maiden for you in the Frenzy storyline, except she's the maiden to the three fingers, not the two. And maybe Nanaya was a sort of maiden to Midra, albeit a more manipulative one. And as another alternative interpretation, I guess you could argue that Nanaya isn't an advocate for Frenzy at all, but I reckon it'd be hard to do personally. That's because the evidence of Nanaya being honest and really genuinely wanting Midra to endure for his own sake is kind of undone by the fact that when we find Nanaya's body in-game, she's actually cradling someone who was a prior Lord of Frenzied Flame, albeit the feeble Lord of Frenzied Flame. Nanaya's torch is a torch made by attaching a dying Flame of Frenzy to a small spinal column. Now, this English description kind of makes it sound like it was a crafted item with Frenzy being attached to the spine, but the Japanese description makes no such claims, and indeed the Frenzy at the tip of the spine simply reflects, I think, one who was a past Lord of Frenzied Flame, since such lords always have their spines culminate in a frenzied void. Anyway, the description goes on to read that in a distant land, in an age long past, was born a man who failed to become the Lord of Frenzied Flame. All that remains of him is cradled gently by Nanaya. This description notes that the feeble Lord of Frenzied Flame existed in a distant land and an age long past.
Ah, For adults and kids, mosquito and tick repellent you both can agree on.
What I'm doing here is I'm creating a closed... Now, one interpretation of that is that the realm of shadow itself is that distant land in question, and that a lord of frenzied flame rose here long ago, even before Midra. Alternatively, you might interpret the distant land as being distant from the lands between entirely, and that the feeble lord's remains were carried here, maybe by Nanaya. It's kind of up to you. What is clear, though, is that there were other aspiring lords of frenzy before Midra, yet all of them were too weak. And surely for Nanaya to cradle this evil lord so tenderly suggests a connection between her and the lord. Therefore, I feel like Nanaya has to have some malintent here with Midra, right? I mean, she's literally sitting in his chair, cradling a prior lord's evil remains. And since Midra is worried about the frenzy spreading, I don't think he'd be too happy about her holding this torch. Not to mention, torches light the way ahead, so symbolically she's having her path ahead lit by the frenzy. Now, I've seen some speculation that this spine belongs to child. The main arguments that I've read are that the spine is specifically defined as small, that Nanaya cradles it affectionately. But just because Nanaya cradles something doesn't mean it's definitively her child. To me, this just reveals that she has affection and perhaps pity for the subject. What's more, the spine being described as small, to me is an indication that it belongs to a feeble lord, not that it's literally a child's spine. Indeed, the spine is quite large and is described as having belonged to a man. Okay, but could this have been her adult child then, who failed to become a lord of frenzied flame long ago? And she could just be cradling their remains. And I mean, I guess you can't rule it out. But then some people insist that this was Midra's child, because Nanaya has her hand over her stomach in the portrait here, a pose that some believe suggests that she was pregnant at the time her portrait was taken. For this to be true, the child would have had to grow up in the sanctum, and then succumb to frenzy, and then fail to become a lord. That's a lot of history for the sanctum to have had. So you'd think surely such history would have been mentioned in the Lord. So while I think these theories are compelling, I don't subscribe to them personally. I believe that Nanaya did have a history with a feeble lord long ago. But to me, since she has such clear, sinister intent in telling Midra to endure, I'm not sure that she can be this well-intentioned mother. And the idea of her being an advocate for the frenzied flame and still giving birth rubs me the wrong way as well. Because birth is kind of a sticking point for those who advocate for frenzied flame. In the base game, Hayata is euphoric at the idea of no more fracture and no more birth. So if you believe that Nanaya is aligned with frenzy, then birth probably isn't too high on her agenda. So in the end, Nanaya's character continues to pose so many questions, like where was the distant land that her torch alludes to? What age long past featured this feeble, frenzied lord? Nanaya wears spiraling clothing and hair in the style of the horn scent, but is she their brethren, or is she pretending? Did she truly bring frenzy to the dance? Did she slander the sanctum and bring the Inquisition? Did she bring about the aging untouchables with the goal of creating a new, ripened lord? So many questions and so much uncertainty, and yet I'm sure that the intriguing character of Nanaya will become an enduring mystery for the lore community for years to come. And that is always fun. Before I move on, look at your walls. Would they look better with some artwork there? So right now, Displate have a deal where if you buy with the link in my description, you can get 22% off if you buy 1 or 2 Displates, or 33% off if you buy more than 3. I have a store full of Displate art, and the newest print is this one, Skyward Swords by Anato Finstar. A print that was previously Patreon exclusive, so now it's available on Displate for the first time. Displate are these metal prints that use a magnet mounting system, and they're so easy to hang on a wall. Prints are excellent quality, and they've just been a steadfast sponsor of this channel. So if you're enjoying this video, please consider picking one up for yourself. And remember, if you buy 3, it's even cheaper. Regardless, thank you for listening. Let's get back to the video. On the topic of Midra's endurance, one observation I was so happy to come across was this tweet by Blue Church Law, who comments on some assets extracted by Slavsky II. These 2 accounts are great follows, by the way. Church notes that Midra wears a brooch adorned with green jewels, which in FromSoft games commonly means that it increases with stamina. So, they argue, Midra may be his health, fortifying his quote-unquote endurance. In Elden Ring specifically, the jewels are Viridian Amber. The Viridian Amber Medallion plus 3 actually is found very close by in the Darklight Catacombs, and so the idea that Midra might have had access to this fortifying resource is a good little theory, for sure. Anyway, let's conclude.
Attention. Let's get back to the lesson. Please. Gross, right? Well, just one type.
Judging from the lack of terrified screams, I will assume you made it through the uncharted tunnel and into the den of strung-out militiamen. Good. Things are going according to plan, huh? Now, let's see what he has for us in the vault this time. You will need 2 keycards for this door. Be careful in this area. Mr. Rubio's personal bodyguards, they know their soldiers and they will know you are not one of them.
In the end, with you pushing him over the edge, Midra finally gives into that blissful salvation, his frenzy. But it's not enough, and his ripening was all for naught. But it's no matter, for as long as order remains, it seems, chaos cannot die. And there are other prospects. Like you, tarnished, exposed to the injustices of the world, who might go on to become Lord of Frenzied Flame. For unlike Midra, you are bolstered by the great runes of the Elden Ring. You are unleashing frenzy from within the Erd Tree itself. Surely that has to count for something. Though, even then, this ending might not strictly be the end. For Melina believed in the beauty of the world that you burned down, despite its flaws. So, Melina, holding fast to Torrent's whistle, promises to deliver you a destined death. As Torrent burns away, his screams echoing in the distance. He was afraid for good reason. Well, thank you for watching.
bodyguards operated. These men will know every soldier under their command. No disguise will fool them. The CCTV image is a little blurry. Was that a gun made of gold? You find a locked door. In my experience, you can also find a key. And here we are, again. Good. We have the combination. Just take your time. So, the bonds are there. Well, you would have thought Mr. Rubio would learn not to trust his safe, huh? Bad news. They have sealed the drainage pipe. You will need to look for another way out of there. Extra guards just arrived. Be careful. If you see anything you like on the way out, do not be shy. Help yourself.
heard from them today. They're saying and accusing Thailand of using cluster bombs in addition to drones and air power in these ongoing clashes. As you can imagine, villagers on both sides of the border are scared and they are fearing for their safety. We've been collecting their accounts from both inside Thailand as well as Cambodia. We also heard an account from a 45-year-old mother of 4 who witnessed these clashes. And I want you to hear what she had to say.
It was about 8 o'clock this morning. Suddenly I heard a loud noise. My son told me it might be thunder, and I thought, is it thunder or is it loud, more like a gun? At that time, I was very scared.
Thailand and Cambodia, they have a complicated relationship, one based on both cooperation and rivalry. They share an 800-kilometer-long border, which has seen its share of military clashes, as well as being a source of political upheaval. I am referring to the Prime Minister of Thailand, Thaksin Shinawatra, who recently she's been under a lot of political pressure for a leaked call that she had recently with the former but still powerful Cambodian leader Hun Sen. In that call, she called him uncle. In that call, she also criticized a Thai army general, or appeared to. Because of that, she's been suspended and she could be dismissed. In the meantime, we've heard from Thailand's acting prime minister, who says this: Thailand at the moment has ruled out talks unless the fighting stops. Back to you.
Yeah, there are multiple reasons that each country can point to as their attempted justification for this escalation, but there are real lives caught in the middle. Chrissy Lustav, thank you so much for breaking that down for us.
Thank
your
you.
Reporting. I want to bring in now Tignan Pongsud Iraq, professor of political science at Chulalongkorn University. He joins us live from Bangkok, Thailand at this hour. Professor, thank you so much for taking time and helping us better understand this growing conflict.
Thank you.
Professor, I'm wondering if you could add some broader context to these tensions between Thailand and Cambodia. In your view, as we've just heard, is the situation likely going to get worse before it gets any better?
Well, today there will be a pause. I think Cambodia has launched a motion with the United Nations Security Council, so the UNSC will have a discussion about this conflict now, and we will see escalation after this or de-escalation. I think there's a dire need now for some kind of a outside mediation or facilitation, coordination of some kind, because both sides are locked into this conflict and it's getting violent. I think yesterday the escalation with the airstrikes, and also the Cambodians also have been firing artillery rounds and using the BM-21 rockets. So both sides are going at it, looking for mediation. The situation goes back, many years. I mean, you can say it's a 1,000-year conflict, dispute, or 100 years. Both sides, Cambodians and Thais, feel resentful of history. Thais think that the French took some land from Thailand to Cambodia. Cambodians think that this is their civilization from a long, long time ago, and ultimately this is their land. So that's the basis of it. But then the tit for tat, I think, started about May 28. There was a small gunfight that claimed a life of a Cambodian soldier. Had that been addressed and investigated, I think this could have been preempted. On the Thai side, very weak government, acting prime minister, acting defense minister. On the Cambodian side, also a lot of incentive to divert and deflect problems at home to this conflict.
You mentioned the word mediation, Professor, just now. I wonder if we could just pivot to that and any potential mediation opportunities here. Where do countries turn to for possible outside mediation? Certainly the United States would, I assume, would not be an option. So what other third party could potentially bring things to a peaceful end?
We have to remember that this flare-up is not unprecedented. In 2003, there was a burning of the Thai embassy in Phnom Penh, so Cambodian.
All right, I'm going to bed because I'm tired and I have to get up early, like extra early in the morning now. Oh, wow, that's not going to be fun. All right, I'm gonna see y'all later, aka sometime later today. Same time, same place. Y'all have a great Friday. TGIF. Good night.